Hi, I am Brittany.
And I'm Jen, and this is Village Homeschoolers. And today we're talking about, well, Brittany called it bossing around your friends, but really it was...
leadership responsibilities while you have friends. Yeah. Hi guys, welcome to the Village. Today we're talking about being bossy.
Yeah, it sucks. I wrote this one because we were doing a teachers meeting, everybody to get prepared.
Right.
And we had a whole bunch of new rules. And when we came out with a new rule, I heard somebody go, "This one's about me, isn't it?"
Yes. Oh gosh, it's this really weird position we are in. And I think years ago when we were like, yeah, we'll lead a co-op. I don't actually think we said it that eagerly. When we were like, okay, we'll lead the co-op. I think we didn't think about it at all. I didn't think about it at all, which was silly. And then now we're like, oh, we're making rules. For the record, we don't just make rules about one person.
Except my husband.
Well, except for her husband.
We have to make lots of rules for him.
There's a literal clause in our handbook that we nicknamed after him.
So if I call him out a lot today, we're just going to use him as an example because he doesn't care and he doesn't listen. So
and he loves you anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. It's better than insulting my actual friends. You know?
Yeah. No. So, but you get in situations where, again, you're managing. Our current size is almost 40 families. You're managing 40 families. The majority of those families have parents who are friends of ours or close acquaintances.
Yes.
And then their children are friends with our children. Like, these are the people who babysit my kids. These are the people I drop my kids off at.
Yeah.
Their house.
Mm-hmm. We play together. We go swimming at their houses. We, whatever.
Yeah. This is what we do. So it's a weird dynamic.
Yeah, and it's stinky because we're all doing this for free, right?
Right.
So it's like almost like a boss-employee dynamic, but nobody's getting paid. Nobody's getting fired, hopefully. You
have to be pretty bad to get fired. And it's also like managing friendships because you also have situations where people come to you and they're like, I love this person so much, but this doesn't work when they do this as my co-teacher. Or this doesn't work when they're my assistant in my classroom.
Yeah.
They're not saying it to be mean. They're not upset. That they love their friend very much.
Yeah, it's not like they're not trying to do a personal attack on this person.
Right, but it's like whatever happened, for better or worse, is not working when they're trying to teach Latin to 15 kids.
Yeah.
And they're asking for help. And we tell everybody all the time, let us know how we can help.
We regret it.
But we don't mean it. No, okay. But we know. And so that's where we're doing our job. So, yeah, it's this weird element. So we're going to talk about it. Yeah, that was the inspiration. I forgot that happened. And it only happened like a month ago.
Yeah. And then, everybody gets this idea that every rule change is because of them directly. Like, everybody's like, this is for me. This is for me. This is for... I heard somebody, say that every time. And I was like, no. Yeah. This is an umbrella rule.
Right.
To cover all of our bases.
Yeah. We had a teacher who, she's new. She's been in our co-op for a year, but she's never taught. And she's teaching this time. And she goes, they just moved to a different home. Local, but just moved. She goes, I need 3 more days before I can send you the lesson plans to print out for the notebooks. And we were like, okay. And she was looking at us in sheer terror because we had just slid. And I was like, no, we understand. We make the rules, but we're not, Stalin.
Yeah.
Not
going to the gulag.
Yeah. So it's this whole, it's very it's a really, and we were like, we know you're moving. You literally gave stuff away to us.
Yeah.
I have a shelf from her home in my home.
Yeah.
That she didn't need anymore in her new house. So I totally, it's this weird balance. So we're going to talk about it today and see how it goes.
So the whole thing is just we're trying not to prevent favoritism. Which is something we kind of get accused of sometimes because we have such close friendships with the people that we're, bossing
Especially
around.
the people that have been in the co-op a long time. There are people that have been in the co-op the same amount of time as me, which is 2016. So we're going on 6 years.
Or there's people that were here before us. So.
And there's people that were here before us that we met when we came in, and they are our friends.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not favoritism, but I can vouch for some people. Like where we're like, okay, well, we know that's going to be late.
We know they're still going to hand it in.
She's good for it, right?
Right. Well, and it's also like, oh, we need to plan this, and I know this person is going to be the best person to plan it, so I'm going to go to them, and I'm not going to say, hey, everybody, who would like to plan the field trip to the art museum? I'm going to go to the friend who used to teach classes at the art museum.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I know her, and I know she will call and be relentless and get us a really good buy one, get one free ticket entrance deal, you know?
Yeah.
And
like, our goal is just like, we're trying to have it treat everybody equally.
Right.
We're trying our best not to do special treatment for people.
Right. But it can be misconstrued that way if you don't know us, because we're like, okay, she's going to hand the lesson plans in a week late, no big deal.
Yeah, or she'll do it in the morning. And if you ask us, normally we're accommodating. But we do have to have these rules in place, because sometimes we have to fall back on the rules for new people particularly. People don't know us as well. People that we don't know as well, that we know that you're good for it.
And we want to set the precedent, right? That like, this is the standard. This is how we do things. Everybody's kind of working together and on board.
I know. And we do expect our friends to stick to that standard. And sometimes we have to drag them up to meet that standard.
Yeah. Especially timelines.
Yeah. Timelines.
And yeah, it gets, I don't know. It's my least favorite thing.
I know. And I wasn't even sure how to deal with this, because I don't want to treat them like my employees, but we're kind of like running a business, you know?
Well, we are in a little bit of a way. We actually, our money is money that exchanges hands.
I know. It's
just no profit made. We're a horrible business. Yeah.
No profit.
Yeah.
We do it all for free.
Yeah. So do the teachers. And that's the other thing. We're like trying to keep that in mind.
And we also have to deal with a lot of the complaining.
Well, that's the other thing. So like, you're like, well, I'm doing the best I can. Somebody will say that to us, and we know they are doing the best they can, but other people don't always. And so then they'll come to us and they'll be like, this doesn't seem fair. Why are they allowed to do this? Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, I don't want to reveal this person's personal details about their life, about why we let them make that decision. Yeah. So I'm sitting here looking like a jerk.
Yeah, it looks like favoritism.
Looks like I'm playing favorites. Yeah. And so that is where we get into...
And you think people want to complain, but they do. They do.
Oh, you think they don't want to complain? Yeah.
Well, you would think that people don't think that they're complaining when they're complaining.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Like, they'll be actively complaining and be like, I didn't know people complained. What do you think this conversation is?
Well, I think there's this other thing too that happens a lot where people, like, it's in our DNA to be like, this is unfair. I'm going to speak up. And they don't know the backstory. Yeah. And it's our job to know the backstory, to make sure everybody, we are an inclusive group. So if this is what's going on in your family right now, if this is what's going on, and you're not ready to share it, it's this whole thing where it's like, you basically have to go to people and go, trust me, it's like this for a reason, but they need to trust you. Yeah. And right from their view, it looks unfair.
Yes. When they're like, well, I'm doing all this work and that person is not.
Right.
Or whatever.
Right.
Or why did this person get special treatment when she's not pulling her fair share?
Right. So
it gets fishy.
Right.
And people get real saucy about it.
So just trust people, that there's context that you don't understand sometimes.
And we have to accept that people are never going to be completely satisfied and happy with anything that we do. Even if we do.
I don't want to accept that.
I know, but we think we're doing awesome. And then
are we? I don't know.
It's kind of like that thing where we think we're funny, but nobody else does.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Oh, man. Okay.
So, yeah, we have to put all these stupid rules into place, and it's not personal, people.
No.
We're just trying to make this cohesive.
Well, and we're trying to protect the relationship, too, because if we can say, well, the rule is that you have to pay by this time.
Yeah, and we're not like, well, Sally doesn't do her part.
We're trying to make sure I can still go to your kid's birthday party and have a good time.
And it's already, even with that, like, it still gets weird when we're leaders, because sometimes we're like, well, it's probably not appropriate for us to be in a group chat that's unofficial.
Yeah. And are we ready to go into the social media avenue?
I don't know. We can.
Let me know when you want to. Yeah.
Why? What's your feelings on social media, Brittany?
Yeah. Well, so this is the other thing I think that's happened. There's we have a website that we run, and that's what runs our registration and all that fun stuff. And then the world of social media exists, right? Instagram, Facebook, social messenger, Snapchat. I don't know. I'm not on that many. But there are multiple ways that we can connect virtually. And there's often like Facebook Messenger chats with lots of people from our co-op in them because we're all friends.
Yeah.
And sometimes there are things in there that I see, read, or, well, read, past tense, or cringe about because I'm like, oh, that was, oh dear.
Yeah.
Like, I know the backstory. I know why we shouldn't be talking about that. I know why that's not a good idea to have as a conversation point.
With a bunch of new people from co-op.
Right, but nobody else does because that's personal details that not everybody shares with people. And it's like, oh gosh, you know? And it's like...
And we don't want to be thought of having the same opinions of some of these people.
Well, and it's like, there's a lot of conversations we have with people as they're coming in that we have to protect everybody. And so, for instance, Jen is not on social media, so she wasn't in this situation, but I was, and other of our leaders were, and we decided, we were like, we're going to not be in these chats anymore because it's putting us in a weird position. I don't want to police my friends' conversations.
Yeah.
However,
because they're allowed to have opinions.
They're
right?
allowed to have opinions, and they're allowed to express them to their friends, and that's all they're doing. But I'm spiraling in my head because I have all this context that no one else has, and all this, like, what if, and I don't want anyone to get hurt, and I don't want anyone to get offended. So I removed myself, and it saved me some time. That's nice. But it's weird. But then it also stinks on the other side of it because, like, those are my friends too.
Yeah.
And now I don't get to chat.
Yeah, you're missing out on conversations.
Casually.
Yeah. Because
it was just not a good idea for me to be involved in that arena. So yeah, it's a weird thing where you're like, I have to remain
neutral
when I may not want to. And I have to remove myself from situations where it feels like, where my friends are and they're hanging out.
And I totally feel left out sometimes because I'm not in these little...
Okay, so like the other thing is like if people are planning events, I feel like I have to attend all of them, even if it's not something that's an interest for my kids or something like that, because I'm like, of course I'm going to attend the ones my friends plan because we're friends.
Yeah.
So we have these mutual interests and our kids are mutually interested in the same thing. But then we get to something else and this may be a new person, but they're trying to contribute to the community, which I love and encourage. And so therefore, I feel like I have to attend even more than I feel like I have to attend the ones I want to do.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, okay, it's a weird situation to be in.
Yeah.
We're really selling the job, aren't we?
That's lovely.
Right. Yeah. Well, and then it's just the general like, oh, I'm your friend. I should tell you everything that's going on. And I sometimes can't do that because I have to protect people's privacy or things that were said to us in confidence or...
Yeah, exactly.
We had a situation where this was a while ago. We had 2 kids who didn't get along. And I don't even think one of these families is in co-op anymore. One of the families was like put on, like had a conversation with us, like basically we need to keep these kids apart. But if I say this to the other parent, they're going to be offended.
Yeah.
And it was this really weird situation where I was like, I'm friends with both of these parents. And the one parent can't figure out why, we had set this rule where these kids basically had to be doing different things all the time. And she was like, oh, I don't understand, like, blah, blah, blah. And we were like, yeah, because the other parent doesn't want these kids hanging out without extreme supervision because it ended up it would not be good.
Yeah.
And again, this is long past, but it's like, it's not telling people the whole story.
Yeah.
Because you don't have a right to. It's not your story to tell.
I can't,
even though that person was my friend.
Yeah. Like recently we've had a lot of people complaining about cell phone use as well.
Oh, yeah.
So that's another one that's interesting because, we're trying to set a good example, right? We try to have the teenagers in our group not play on their phones the whole day.
Right.
And then the parents are And then the teachers are like, they're supposed to be assisting me, and they're just playing on their phone the whole time, and there's toddlers running amok, or there's whatever.
Right. People have carrying buckets of paint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I don't want to have to be like adulting here and telling people how to
adult.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and at the same time, it's hard for the teachers too. That's not even just for us, but it's like, we're all like, we literally had to say, like, you need to tell them to get off their phones. And we know that really sucks.
Yeah.
It stinks to have to tell your friend, like, put it away.
Because they get angry at you sometimes.
Right.
They get offended. I know one time we sent a rule about no talking, like for parents, like try to not talk.
Because your voice is, yeah.
Yeah, because they drowned out when we're trying to do announcements in the morning. I'm not like crazy about it, but they don't realize how loud they are. Well, I set that rule, and then one of the other leaders came up to me and like, you're talking. And I was like, yikes.
Yeah.
And I felt terrible about it, but I needed to be reminded.
Yeah, and when we have rules, for instance, we were making a rule something we changed recently, and it did not involve one person. Everyone was like, this is about me. No, it's not. It involved things we noticed, and it was actually kind of like a post-COVID situation. I think it wouldn't have occurred to us until people became more conscientious about staying home if they weren't feeling well. Also, we're a bigger group now, and so like there's just going to be more people that get sick. Car breaks down, have to stay home for the repair guy to come fix the fridge, right? So we're changing a rule. Part of the rule was we were changing the rule, and then we were like, okay, we have to announce the rule. And like all of us looked at each other and like, nobody wants to be the person that announces this rule, because people are going to think it's about them.
Yeah. Normally it's not about
it's about a situation and a lot of people. And I'm like, and no one wants to have these conversations with their friends. And that was like, because we had debated not making it a rule and then having the conversation with people this happened to frequently.
Yeah, because you don't want to criticize your friends.
No, it stinks. And we all looked at each other like, who's drawing the short straw?
Yeah.
It was me. I did. It's hard. It's so hard. I don't have a good answer for that one.
And I found that like talking on paper and not in person sometimes is easier, because like when you have to look at the person and be like, you suck, you know?
That's how Jen addresses it. Yeah.
You know, it's a lot harder than if you write it down in like a nice...
Well, and I think it's also like the rule, and sometimes things happen and they're like an escalating situation. So the person does not realize how problematic it was down like 8 trickled down steps. And so they don't realize that. And so then you're like, this is why we're making this rule. And then they're embarrassed because they didn't realize how much of a
problem they were causing,
or like, how problematic. Right. And then they feel bad. And I'm like, no, we're not. That's just as much our fault as anybody's fault, right? We didn't anticipate this being a problem. It didn't work how we were doing it. So we're changing it so it works better. And maybe this isn't going to work this way, and we'll change it again. We just talked about that with another rule that we're talking, that registration thing that we've done, and it's clearly not working. We're going to change it before we do another round of registration. That's how we do it. We're always changing things to fix it to work the best. And it may work that way for a while, and then we may have to change it again. So, but I think that's part of it too, is like, because we're friends, when we're having conversations with people, like, this exists for this reason, they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how upsetting this could be for other people.
Yeah.
And then they feel bad, and no one likes to feel like that.
Where I think if we weren't friends with them, they'd probably feel less bad. They'd probably be like, oh, okay, whatever.
Well, it's true, because we just had a conversation with somebody on the waiting list who we don't know. And we were she asked for something we couldn't do, and it would have been a huge inconvenience to the teachers involved. And we were like, we're really sorry, but that's too much of a load to put on people who are working for free, and we cannot ask them to do that. And it was very easy and clinical. Yeah. We were just like, okay, so sorry, that's not going to work for us. You might need to find a different group for you.
But it is so much easier to do it via email.
Yeah, we did it via email instead of in person. But also it's your friend, so you feel like you should do it in person. You should be like, also, are they reading the email? You know?
Yeah. But like with our friends, like when you're in person, they seem wonderful because their personality is showing through. But on paper, if you just saw them and be like, oh man, this person is always late to class, and this person is whatever. Right. Never has her stuff in on time, this person. Right. Yeah. And then you're like, well, they look real crappy. Right, on paper, but in real life, man, they're amazing.
Right, I know. And that's when we get back to full circle to the favoritism, because we're like, no, even though they have struggled with this, and this, we know they're really amazing at this, and this.
And see, this is where my husband, he loops back in, because he is chronically late turning in everything, all his class plans.
But he's married to one of us.
But
and
I know.
good friends with my husband.
Yeah, and I know that he's working very hard, and he turns in thesis level class plans.
It's insane.
It's insane.
It's so much.
The detail.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, he's working hard, but he's never going to get this done in time because he started at 11 p.m. and it's due at 12. Mm-hmm. And he'll be turning it in at 4 a.m. probably.
Because he knows I'm asleep. He's like, well, I wake up and it's there, and I'm like, well, I can't argue with him.
Yeah, he does his best work on a time crunch. And it's,
some do, not me.
Not me either.
Yeah. So, yeah, it is just that's where it comes in.
But on if I looked at him on paper where he was chronic and I didn't know him,
mm-hmm.
I'd be like, why the heck can't this guy turn his stuff in on time?
You big jerk.
Yeah. Like, why can't you just start it the day
if
before?
If you looked at me on paper, now I am timely. But if you looked at me in other ways, I might not be nice to. I mean, if you looked at all of us on paper, maybe we would all look like crud.
Oh, yeah. Probably.
So but you can't, that's why we have this argument, ironically, with her husband all the time, because he is very by the book, clinical about it. And I'm like,
black and white.
And so is my husband, for the record. But I was trying to explain a situation at co-op to my husband a couple weeks ago. And he goes, this is why this is hard, because human beings are not black and white people. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, exactly. So even though they're not your friends, but especially when they are your friends, you're just muddling around in the gray, mm-hmm. like knowing that like we aren't really judging people by how they look on paper. We're judging their character and who they are as human beings, and they're all amazing.
Exactly, which is why we give a little bit of more
leeway.
Yes.
Right.
Because we know you're wonderful.
Right.
But we have to look like we're not blatantly favoritizing.
This now. Yeah. And I think it's like, and that's why I think I'm generally a believer in the rules, like set the rule, have it be followed, and then have a conversation with somebody who's moving mm-hmm. and she needs another 5 days to get the lesson plans in. Have a conversation with somebody who's ended up in the hospital and didn't register for classes on time. You know what I mean? Like, have a conversation with somebody who's a night shift nurse who's gonna be late because she slept 2.5 hours.
And has a million children.
And has has to get all these kids dressed, packed lunches and all that. Have those conversations. Don't get rid of the rule, uphold the rule, but then understand that sometimes people are late.
There's nuances.
Right. And if you set your deadlines far enough back, you can account for this.
And lie to the people about when it actually is.
We're printing it today. No. So it is. It's a balance. I don't know. I still don't know how good we are. And then I'm always like paranoid. I'm like, oh my gosh, are they all like complaining about us behind our backs on those Facebook messengers that we're not involved in anymore? Probably. We love you all anyway.
I mean, we deserve it, but whatever.
I figured. After every time we have a meeting or a big email, I wonder about that, if we get the complaints.
Yeah, but in secret.
I guess we'll never know. Those people.
I hope they appreciate us somewhat.
Oh, I'm sure they do. I know they do. It's just always like, I always have wondered that too. I'm like, every time we make an announcement that may not be super pleasant, like...
Don't worry, you put plenty of exclamation marks, so it looks...
I'm also a public shamer, though, as I've learned. So, it's really funny. So we live in New England, and New England is nothing if not old. And there's lots of places you can go and tour, like, old colonial establishments, Mm-hmm. And we went to one recently, and we went into the printer's office, where they were showing you this printer from the 1840s, and he was like, this is a lot of things the printers would print. And he held up this little notice, and it was basically like a public notice that somebody hadn't paid their debts and that they were severely in debt to somebody else, mm-hmm. like for sheep or whatever. And he said basically they printed a lot of notices about debt and crime. Like if you did something, you broke a rule, they would publish it, they would post it up on buildings all over the town and publicly mm-hmm. shame you, basically. And
it works.
It works. Now, I'm not pro public shaming. For instance, we have this survey we need people to fill out And it has you like agree to our policies. It has you let us know what your kids need. If your kid has an allergy, that's how we're going to find out, like all that stuff. And we had like the last few people that hadn't filled it out.
And they should know better.
Because it's always them. We love them.
Every time.
And that's what happens, right? We love these people. So we're like, oh, they're fine. They're going to get to
and
it eventually.
We know who they're going to be. Every time we're like, well, these 4 people
okay. So then
consistently don't do it.
So I said to another leader, I said, send out the reminders to these 4.
And it was funny because one of the people wrote an email back saying, I'll do it tomorrow. And it's like, you could have finished it that time. But that's how they are. And it's fun.
And then it was like, so we did that. And one of the 6 did it. And I was like, are you kidding me? So I went and did like on a Facebook post where I tagged them, and I was like, it's time for the public shaming. Tag, 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 tag. And it worked. And I was like, okay. And it's like one of those things where like, that's what some people need. They need to be tagged and emailed and responded multiple times to do it. At the same time, you're like, you take it personally because they're your friend. You're like, why are you doing this to me? Just fill it out. Like it's like, you know how long I have to wait for this? Now I have to track you down.
Yeah.
It's not funny anymore. Where I'm like, not like there's a new person who hasn't filled it out yet. And I'm not nearly as worked up about her, where I'm like, my 6 friends are really ticking me off today. Then they all did it and apologized. And I was like, all right, I love you.
Yeah.
We're fine.
You had good excuses.
Yeah,
all right.
I may have overreacted. But like, it's just, it's a hard line.
We're trying, people.
We're trying.
Have you ever think we're being sassy to you, or
we are? No,
because we're tired.
Yeah, I know. It's a fine line to walk, and I'm like, I've said multiple times to Jen, like when somebody else is in charge, and we're just teachers and members of this co-op again, it's going to be nice. It's going to be fun. Although I'll probably feel the need to defend those leaders and be like, they're doing it like this for a reason.
Unless they really suck, and then we're like, well, we did it better.
Well, no, because we're the ones, in theory, teaching them how to do this job.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
So let's hope they don't stink, because that's on us.
I'm a terrible mentor, apparently.
Yeah. No, and they don't. We have new leaders we're teaching this stuff, and they're amazing.
They totally are.
Yeah. One of them just organized our Google Drive, which is literally like Nobel Peace Prize worthy. We literally that thing is a hot mess.
Yeah.
So now it's beautiful and organized.
Yeah, she's just like you.
Yeah, well, I did, but except I let that Google Drive just mire down in chaos.
That's true.
The search function works so well. I just was like,
yeah,
type. Oh, there it is. That's what I want.
They're good enough. It's close enough.
Yeah. So there's that tangent. But yeah, what else do we need to know about? No?
That was it. Working
Working with friends is hard. It's important. It helps build community, but it's hard.
That's a little flair to your friendship.
Would not recommend. That's a nice way to say it. 10 out of 10 would or would not recommend. I don't know. It depends on the day.
Yeah, it depends on the person.
I mean, it is valuable, really, though. I mean, because, like, you can say, like, oh, my gosh, blah, blah, blah is sick, and they're not going to be here, and I really need this. And then you know who to call to get that, because you know your friends.
Yeah.
Or if you're like, I really need a coffee on the way, please pick it up. You know who's going to make that coffee run every single time. And we know who you are.
Yeah. A co-leader.
Yeah. She offers, God bless her, every time.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And so, like, we know who's going to do that. And so friendship is nice in that way.
Except when you're bossing your friends around, that sucks.
Yeah, but it also is in a weird, I don't know, it's like kind of like marriage or in bossing your husband around. In your case. Or my case. I boss Jen's husband around more than she does.
I think you might disagree with that, but...
Well, in life, you do. In co-op, maybe me.
Yeah. Well, he needs it. He needs somebody else because he doesn't listen to me. So he goes above me sometimes. He's like, he needs to speak to my manager, so he calls Brittany.
That's me. And I sometimes think I say the same thing you do. He just takes it better from me.
Totally. I'm like, this is what I just said, but whatever. Okay.
Well, this is the other thing. Even when you're working with your friends, who's it going to be better coming from? And I think we do that a lot. Now, I think...
we just did that recently. We're like, which one of us would be the smoothest talking about a certain situation to another one of our co-op friends.
Yep, we did. And they do a test too. We like to call it mom and popping. Or
Oh, yes.
where they'll pick who they go to about certain things.
What leader is going to say yes?
Or no.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And so I think that's part of...
It's rarely ever me they come to.
Jen's a real hardliner. Well, and I mean, sometimes it's just like, this is like, if we're talking about money, it's not me or you. They know that they have to go to our other leader. Yeah. So sometimes it's just logistics, and sometimes they're more like, who's going to have the same viewpoint on me as this as me, and so they'll come.
Or who's going to give me the gossip, or who's going to,
Yeah, I don't know. I think so. We all do that, and it's like this symbiotic mutualism.
Like, even though stuff I work on, like registration, people email you, Brittany, and text you and ask you questions, and then you have to ask me, and it's like, why didn't they just ask me to begin with?
Well, and
am I that unapproachable? Apparently.
Or I do the whole, it's good because I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're asking me because you think I have the inside scoop, and I don't on this. On others maybe, but yeah. So we do it too. I know who is the best person to ask this, and I know who the best person to say this to this person is.
Yeah.
We literally, this has been years, but we've had to write a few difficult emails a long time ago. People who are not in our co-op anymore because of these reasons. And I wrote them and Jen signed them. Because it was better coming from her than it was from me. Even though I wrote them. Like, if my name was going to elicit a reaction in these people because our kids did activities maybe outside of co-op together.
And they know that I draw hard the line sometimes.
And they knew, so it was like, this is the rule, this is what we've all agreed on. Brittany I'm the fastest at writing it out, so that's why it's become my job. And then Jen put her name on it because it was best coming from her. We haven't done that in a while.
Yeah, we haven't.
No, but it's it definitely works that way. When you're friends, you're like, they'll come to whichever leader they think they're closest to for that scenario, and when we need something, we'll go to the people that we think are best to handle that situation.
Yeah, I mean, I know the people that are yes people that will not tell me no when I ask them to do something.
Right.
Will cooperate with me.
And just in general, who works, like, who knows how to do the job. Like, sometimes it's like, I'm not going to ask, your husband to do a poetry, to substitute for a poetry class. That's a ridiculous idea. He would not feel confident in that. So, but I know who to ask, if I need to throw them in with the sharks at the last minute because the teachers are sick.
Yeah, or who to teach in robotics. They're not going to do the poetry teacher.
Right.
It's not going to be you substituting.
No. My husband maybe, but not me. Well, yeah, exactly. So it's just a matter of like, okay, who's willing, who's able, and they do the same thing to us. Most of the time it's fine.
We still love you people, but
yeah, we do.
We're trying our best.
Sometimes it stresses us out.
Yeah. We're trying
Loving you, sorry. What song is that?
I don't know if that is a song. It is now.
Loving you, sorry. But worth it.
Mostly.
Isn't it Love Hurts? Okay, now I'm just done I'm singing power ballads in my head.
Brittany was a sheltered homeschool kid, so she doesn't really know any pop music. Do you?
Yeah, I do, but I don't know. I also literally somebody said something to me and I was like, who are they? What are we doing? Like, I don't know anything modern. Like, I'm barely functioning, I love music, but I am not somebody who plays like the radio. We don't listen to it a lot. So I'm like, my house is noisy enough with dogs, kids, husband.
What do you listen to in the car?
Nothing, God willing.
Really? When you're by yourself?
Oh, by myself, I'll listen to a podcast. Not us. I don't listen to myself. You people are crazy enough for that. No, I'll listen to other podcasts or something like that. Like, yeah, I don't listen to if I'm by myself. And now, like, when I go on a road trip, my kids will listen to things because they have like audiobooks and tablets sometimes, and then I'll put on the podcast or put on, even like you can listen to things on YouTube that don't have video, like we are on YouTube. I'll do that sometimes too. Just turn it on my phone. That's it. I don't listen to music. Mostly because it's the noise level. Like something about, but if my kids are talking at me, I'll turn the podcast off. I cannot handle so much noise. Yeah. I'm like noise resistant. So, yeah.
Anyway, that's the end of our podcast.
And there's your tandem about friendship to noise to. All right.
What Brittany listens to in the car.
Yeah, there you go. All right. If we'd love to chat with you about how you manage friendships in your homeschool co-op, you can find us at Instagram, Facebook, and at thevillagehomeschoolers@gmail.com. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll be back soon.